There we go. Welcome, everybody. My name is Helena. I'm really glad that you're joining me here today. I think it's going to be a very interesting time for you. So first of all, I just want to let you know, you are really in the right place if you're a woman who's been emotionally and or psychologically abused. And you've thought to yourself, what is wrong with me? I hardly even know who I am anymore. Why do I feel so anxious and insecure and overwhelmed and brain foggy and unmotivated? And sometimes I'm really, really angry, or sometimes I'm just shut down. And why do I get triggered so easily? Am I just like oversensitive? Am I just too emotional, like everybody's telling me? Or maybe you're, out of the marriage, still feeling this way, or thinking, I'm out. Why aren't I happy? Like I thought I would be. I'm not doing well enough. I thought I would be better by now. But you're also in the right place if you know that you have trauma from your marriage and you want to learn how to heal from it. So, do any of those describe you? You can, if they do, just go ahead and drop a yes in the chat box. I always like to know that I'm okay, good. That I'm hitting the mark here. And so let me take a moment to introduce myself, and then we're going to jump into some really concrete teaching about trauma. So first, I just want to let you know who I am. And so, as I said, my name is Helena, and I'm a trained trauma coach. I'm an abuse survivor myself. I'm also an advocate and an educator. And I'm the founder of the website Confusion to Clarity, and also the Confusion to Clarity Facebook group, which, wow, I think over 9,000 women have been in at one time. There are about 5 right now coming through that group to help understand what's going on in their life. And I'm also the founder of the Arise Healing Community. And so over the last 8 years, I have helped thousands of women understand abuse and recover from it. So I was married to a psychological and emotional abuser. He was very covert in his tactics. And it took me, I was married to him for 19 years. We were together for 26. It took me 18 years to even realize that there was abuse going on, because that's the nature of covert abuse. It's so hard to figure out. And then after I divorced him, I was really, really struggling for years, for really several years, mentally and emotionally. And I'll share more about that in a minute. But it was when I discovered trauma and trauma healing that things started to really fall into place and change for me. And I've actually finally found some peace. And so that's why I created the Arise Healing Community. Oops. There we go. Which is to give you support, whether you're married or separated, divorced, wherever you are in your journey, so that you can become more stable emotionally and mentally, because boy, do I know how hard it is to just feel so unstable. And that's all. In Arise, I also offer amazing tools. I'm going to share one with you today, and it's a whole healing program about abuse. But let me tell you what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about the missing piece for healing, which is understanding trauma from abuse and how it's affected you. And then I'm going to teach you a tool you can use right away, today and tomorrow, and as many days as you want. And then I'll be talking about the 3 healing pillars and the Arise Healing Roadmap. And then I'm really happy to answer questions, hang out, and chat with you for as long as you want. It's always my pleasure to do that. So we're also going to be talking about these 3 pillars of healing, which is building your foundation by understanding trauma, strengthening your relationship with yourself, and then healing of your mind and your heart and your soul and your spirit. So first, I want to talk about trauma. Something that we all experience as a result of abuse is losing ourselves. And that is what abuse does to us. If you feel that way, you are not strange. You're not broken. It's very, very normal. And even after we leave the marriage, we still feel like we've lost a huge part of ourselves. And I certainly didn't know how to get her back. And then what happens is over time, we just really get weighed down with self-condemnation and shame because we think we're doing something wrong, that it's hard to heal. And we might even think we're broken for good. And we end up like in this battle with ourselves. I know this was my experience. After, during my separation, after the divorce, I prayed all the time. And Jesus did help me a lot. And I was also in talk therapy, but I just couldn't understand why I was still struggling so much. I had undone a lot of lies. I was trying to really walk in truth. I was trying to change my thoughts, but I just wasn't at peace with myself or my life. I had a lot of times of feeling really anxious, of shutting down, of kind of wanting to stay in bed, of feeling powerless, confused again, overwhelmed, even a lot of despair just because I wasn't moving forward. I remember I would doubt myself a lot about a lot of things. And I just remember thinking, is life supposed to be this hard? Why is it so hard? I mean, what am I doing wrong? Or I just be praying, Jesus, why won't you please just fix me? Well, I don't live that way anymore, but it really took understanding trauma and how to heal trauma for me to heal and to find myself again. So if you're feeling anything that I've described, I really want you to know you're not crazy and you're not unstable. You're not weak. You're not in sin. And what I know about you is actually you're very brave and you're very strong because I know what you've gone through or what you are going through. And I know how brave and strong we all need to be to survive that. So you are not the problem. You don't have too little faith. Healing is hard, not because of something that you're doing wrong, but because of something that you're missing. And the emotional instability that I've described is coming from several things that happen during abuse. One of them is that abuse causes this earthquake in our life to our whole view of the world, but also to our view of ourselves. And we believe that many of us end up believing that we've lost these inner resources that we thought we had to handle life because we couldn't, handle the marriage. We couldn't manage him. But you know what? No one can manage an abuser. No one can handle being abused. And that's not on you, that's on him. So that's not your fault. And you still do have those inner resources to heal. It's just a matter of getting back in touch with them. But also, and this is the bigger thing I want to talk about just today, unhealed trauma makes it very hard for us to regulate our emotions. And this leaves us feeling very easily triggered, anxious, numb, disconnected from ourselves, discombobulated, shut down, powerless. You might even feel like your feelings and your struggles are just too hard to change and you're going to feel like this forever and there's no hope for your future. That's actually coming from the trauma itself. And as you probably know from frustrating experience, you can't talk yourself out of these feelings. You might get some relief, and feel a little bit better, but then boom, trigger happens or you feel threatened in some way and boom, you go right back into that awful place again. Has anybody experienced that? I know I did. I felt like I was just getting, you can even put a yes in the chat if you want, getting a little bit of progress and then, oh, I lost it all. What happened? So here's what I really want you to know. These struggles are symptoms of trauma, and they can't actually be overcome by your thoughts or by talk therapy alone. And so to get free from this cycle of triggering and, going back and forth, you need to actually deal with the trauma that's gotten trapped in your body. But it's very simple to do that. See, when we are abused, our body gets stuck in a trauma state. So I want to explain that just really quickly. This is not a choice that you're making. This is a survival mechanism that your body goes into, because God actually created our bodies to be pretty amazing. And he created these automatic body systems to help us in emergencies. For instance, if you step off a curb, almost get hit by a car, the alarm bells ring in your brain. It sends this message to your nervous system to go on high alert. Things happen in your body, to give you that strength and that speed to react. You probably know what I'm talking about, the adrenaline rush and your heart pounding, you act on instinct. So that's the survival response. Or maybe you feel threatened in a different way. And you might respond to that with just freezing, or just wanting to get out of there as fast as you can to protect yourself. These are survival responses, and they were designed to calm down as soon as the danger is over. But during abuse, when we're being abused chronically over a long period of time, these alarm bells are always ringing. And this causes our body to get stuck in an ongoing dysregulated state, because it's always going into survival, survival, survival. And normally we have this calming, regulating part of our nervous system that's supposed to be leading our life. But when we are in a chronic state of threat, that calming part of our nervous system has to take a back seat to the survival system. And that's how we get stuck in this trauma state. And what that looks like is constantly feeling anxious or overwhelmed or angry or numb or frozen or going between those things, but just reacting. And being stuck in that trauma state changes our brain and our physiology. And so that's what causes the symptoms of chronic PTSD, of trauma. And when I use the word trauma, it's because trauma is actually a state. It's not an event. I mean, it's an event, but it's also a state that we get stuck in. Someone once said, it's like our nervous system is this government agency, and every circumstance or every person is a potential terrorist. That's kind of how we live. And so even after we leave the abuse, that state in our body continues, because our body and brain have become dysregulated. It's like an engine that is stuck. You either stuck on high, or stuck on just and can't get going. And that's what's affecting our emotions and our thoughts. And that's why we feel like we have so little control over them. And that's why we end up feeling like a failure, because we can't unrev or start this engine with our will or our thoughts or talk therapy. So let me just briefly describe what being stuck in this trauma state in our body looks like in everyday life. Let's say someone gets really angry at you. And of course, you wish, like we all, like I do, or used to, that you could just respond calmly and not get upset, right? Isn't that what we want to be able to do? But instead, you either shut down inside and you can't think of anything to say. That's the survival response of freeze. Or you start to panic and you just want to get out of there as fast as you can. That's the survival response of flight. Or you just feel really mad and you just want to tell them off and yell at them. That's the survival response of fight. Or you just want to cower and just say anything just to get them to stop. That's the trauma response of fawn, which many people misinterpret as being a people pleaser, but it's actually a trauma response. Or another example, when life stressors happen and you feel overwhelmed by life and all you want to do is stay in bed, that's freeze. Or you get antsy and restless, that's flight. Or you just feel short-tempered and angry, that's fight. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the author Bessel van der Kolk. He wrote the ultimate book on trauma. He's a trauma researcher, the leading trauma researcher. And his book is called The Body Keeps the Score. I was trained by him. So I want to take a quote out of his book. It says, traumatic stress has little to do with our cognition, it's our thinking. It emanates from the emotional part of the brain that is rewired to constantly send out messages of danger and distress. This is not something that you think it's about your body having been reset to interpret the world as a terrifying place and yourself as being unsafe. Someone can tell you, well, you shouldn't feel that way, or it wasn't your fault. Yet you think to yourself, I know, but I still feel like it is. Yeah. So there's a small percentage of people who can leave an abusive marriage and do the grieving, use positive thinking, renew their mind, and move on and rebuild their life. And I think that's wonderful for them. That was not me. You see, statistics show 88% of us have long-lasting trauma symptoms and chronic PTSD from an abusive marriage. That's super high. You're not alone. Unfortunately, the church and most therapists who have not specifically been trauma trained and most coaches do not understand trauma. They do not understand that there's a difference between our brain and our mind and our thoughts, and that our dysregulated brain and body is affecting our mind and our thoughts and our feelings. So I had a broken brain. I had a broken nervous system, but nobody understood this. Nobody in Christianity certainly understood this. You know, people I went to for help. I had PTSD and I was getting blamed for my responses. I hope you know you're not to be blamed for your responses. You know, this is like telling a war vet that when he has a startle reflex because he hears a car backfire, that he's in sin. He's not in sin. You're not in sin. You have trauma. There's such a big difference. So what I came to understand is, how could the church know how to heal abuse if they can barely even acknowledge it to begin with, right? So we need a level of care that is equal to our level of injury. And we need a path to healing. That's why I created the Arise Healing Community, which I will be talking about today, to give you that guided path, that guided journey for your heart and your mind, your emotions, your dysregulated body, your dysregulated brain, and your spirit. And to give you tools that are very specifically geared towards this trauma I've been talking about, tools that will help you regulate your brain and your body so you can manage your emotions, reduce your triggers, and heal. So let me check the comments. And then I want to teach you a tool right now. Let's do that. I'm glad you're here and you don't feel alone. That's really good. If you have any questions, please do hold them for the end and then type them in when I tell you, because I won't be able to go back to the chat and find them. Yeah. Helpers are clueless and make things worse, and they're so fluffy. I know. I have to tell you, there's one thing I'm not, it's fluffy. I really get down to brass tacks. Yeah. So anxious all the time. Yeah. Okay. You guys are really here in the right place. Okay. All right, let's do the tool. But first, actually, have you had some ahas? I mean, there are some people, yep, you're saying you've had ahas. Just some yeses. Yeah, I get it now. Oh my goodness. I'm not at fault for this. That's the message I want to give you. You're not at fault, and there is something you can do about it. Okay, good. There's yeses coming in. So let me take some water and we'll do the tool. In Arise, I teach over 20 different tools. And I have a wide variety because some tools work really well for some people and other tools work really well for others. But these tools can help you get out of that panic, get out of those strong, overwhelming emotions. They can help you process and move through the emotional pain so much more quickly. They can help you change your beliefs and your thinking and bring you clarity and undo lies. It's just remarkable to watch these tools. They can help you stop those ruminating thoughts Oh, ruminating thoughts. They're so awful. They can help you really, truly get free from self-blame and guilt and shame and needing other people's approval and fear and so much more. And the women in our eyes say they are really amazed at how their thinking and emotions are changing by using the tools. In fact, let me share a few just quick comments by them. The tools have helped me immensely in my day-to-day life as I process past hurt and face anxieties about the future. I'm learning how to reconnect to myself and love myself. I never felt like this anxious mess I was me. Learning tools has been so healing and given me the sense of power and hope because they work. And my stress and circular thinking patterns have been greatly reduced because Helena teaches tools in a way where they can be used in real time to break the destructive thinking patterns caused by trauma. So I'm sharing these women's experiences to give you hope. There is hope for you. I know what it was like to be despairing and feeling like I could never, ever get free. And you don't have to live that way. So let's talk about the tool I'm going to teach you today. Now, in Arise, I teach the science behind why these tools work, but I'm not going to take the time to do that today. So this tool, there are 3 basic movements that I'm going to guide you through in the next few minutes in using this tool. So why don't you just go ahead and practice them with me right now. The first movement is to stroke your upper arms. You just put your hands right up here and you go down. And then you lift up your hand and you stroke again from top down. And you can go at the speed and with the pressure that feels comforting to you. The second movement is on your face. You'll be stroking your face like this. Once again, with the right pressure and speed that feels comforting to you. You can go ahead and practice. And the third tool, or the third movement, is doing this with your hands, just going back and forth. Now, this is changing your nervous system. Believe it or not, this is actually going to change your nervous system. So let's go ahead and start. So first, I want you to close your eyes and think about something that's upsetting you, just briefly. And imagine a number of between 1 and 10 and give that sense of upset and disturbance that you feel somewhere between a 1 and a 10. 10 being really distressed and 1 being kind of relaxed and calm about it. And then notice, and I can tell you that most of us 9s and 10s are really common for the kind of distress that we live with. Okay, so then just notice briefly, where are you holding this tension? Is it in your shoulders, your jaws, your back, your gut, anywhere? There's no right answer. I just want you to be aware of where it's feeling and where you're feeling it in your body. Now I want you to take a deep breath. Now, the way we want to breathe that's helpful for us is to actually breathe as deeply as we can so that our little stomach pooches out. I know we're not supposed to have a pooched out stomach as women, right? But pooch that stomach out and take a deep breath in, not so much that you're going to feel dizzy, just a gentle breath in. And if you exhale longer than you inhale, that will actually help start that calming part of your nervous system to kick in. So take a deep breath. And exhale. And now what I want you to do is start the movement on your arms. And you can close your eyes for a second. Just imagine that you're on a beach or you're in the woods. And notice the air. Is it cool? Is it warm? Is it windy? Is it still? Do you hear any sounds? Are there any birds? Anything? The waves, or the leaves on the trees. Is there anything that you can imagine smelling? Can you feel either the ground on your feet if you're in the woods or the sand on your feet? And now I want you to start walking. Continue to do the motion on your arms. and start walking and count from 1 to 20 with each step. I'm going to let you count to 20. And keep noticing the air. Keep noticing the sounds. Keep noticing if you feel warm or cool. All right, and now open your eyes. And you guys are still with your hands. You guys are totally muted. So I want you to just sing the first verse of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Okay, good. Now hum that same verse. And take a deep breath. Now move to your face. And while you're doing your face, I want you to think of a famous movie star singer. We're going to go through like 10, okay? I'll say one out loud, and then you say one, or think of one, and then I'll say one, you say one. We'll just go back and forth. Now we might repeat because I don't know what you've said, but okay. So the Beach Boys. Celine Dion. Your turn. Aretha Franklin. And Amy Grant. Your turn again. Elvis Presley. Your turn again. The Beatles. Okay, now move to your palms. And while you do your palms back and forth, I want you to follow my finger. Okay, I'm just going to go back and forth. Just follow this with your eyes, not with your head, but just your eyes. While you continue to do your palms. All right, take another deep breath. Just check in on your number and see if it's gone down at all. We're going to keep going. We're going to do another round. So go back to your arms. This time I want you to hum Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Good. And take a deep breath. And I want you to imagine that you're holding on to 10 balloons on strings. They're full of helium. And just notice if they are all the same color or if you have lots of different colors. And you can close your eyes for this if you want. Imagine that you are letting go of one balloon at a time. And just watch it float away for a second and then let go of another one. And you see if you notice the color just kind of going up into the sky. And count each balloon that you let go. Okay. Now I want you to go back to the face motion. And we're going to do food. So I'm going to say one food, you're going to say one food, and then I'll go back to mine. So chicken. And green beans. Your turn. Bananas. Your turn. Ice cream. Your turn. Steak. Your turn. Tomatoes. Your turn. Broccoli. And your turn. Okay. Let's go back to the hands. I'm going to do the eye movement again. Keep doing your hands while you watch my finger. All right, take a deep breath. Now stretch a little bit. And I want you to go back to that upset and see what your number is now. And I would love for you to put into the chat box your number, what it was at the beginning and what it is now. I've never taught this tool without coaching and having feedback, so I'm curious to know if it's working in this kind of a setting. But okay, 8 to 3, really good. 9 to 2, 9 to 4, 3 to 2, 10 to 2. Okay, awesome. Thank you. 7 to 1, 9 to 4, 9 to 3, 8 to 4. Great. Thank you so much for giving me that feedback. So if it didn't help you that much, it's okay. Don't worry about that. You know, we have so many other tools that can help you if this one didn't. That's why I teach so many Inner Eyes. Now I know that this tool seems really silly, but Inner Eyes, I will actually tell you the scientific reason why this is working and what it's actually doing to your body. These 3 motions can also be used without the stuff I was having you do to process painful feelings and hard memories and change lies and all these kinds of things. And I teach that Inner Eyes. I actually have scripts for you to follow while using different tools to help you work through things. So it made you cry. Crying is okay. Crying is okay. Yeah. I understand some people have a hard time coming up with a number. It's okay. This was just, you know, like a little sample. So anyway, I just want to say that tools can help you with so much more. This is a tool that is just meant to bring you a little bit of relaxation and calm and regulation in the moment. But there are other tools where you can actually process like an event that was traumatizing. Like, here's an example. Someone in Inner Eyes, Tracy, so she was overwhelmed about making a decision about whether or not to get divorced because she was so scared of losing her 3-year-old son. She was at a 9. She felt hopeless, scared, traumatized, devastated, terrified. So I used this tool with her, and you know, in a slightly different way. And within a few minutes, her number went from a 9 down to a 6. Then after another few minutes, it was down to a 4. And then she started to have these thoughts like, oh, I can actually get through this. Oh, you know what? I'm stronger than I think I am. Oh, I'm safe in Jesus' arms. And this is what I love about the tools, is that our brain actually starts to find the truth itself when our body in dysregulation starts to come down, because we know the truth, we have the truth, and our brain finds it. It's not like you have to come up with the truth and stare in the mirror and tell yourself that truth 50,000 times in a day. Your brain can, it becomes part of you when you're working with your body at this level. And then back to Tracy, a few more minutes, she was down to a 1, which was surprising to me. She said, I'm so relaxed, my body feels all noodly, like I just got out of a hot tub. And a week later, she had not only made the decision to divorce, which was right, and she just needed to get some of the fear lessened about it. She also had gone out and found herself a lawyer. I was quite amazed at, you know, how this moved her forward so quickly. So then there's Mary. Now I coached her using a different tool. And by the way, I have hundreds of stories like this. I coached her using a different tool, Analyze, about her the powerless feelings she had about her toxic sister. And then just at our meeting just a few days ago, I coached her in the fall. And a few days ago, she told me that everything had changed for her since that coaching session. That not only was she empowered and clear in relating with her toxic sister, but what was most surprising to her is that she was feeling actually very clear with her soon-to-be ex and empowered with him and not getting triggered like she was, which is pretty amazing. And, she was asking me, well, how did that even happen? And, I explained to her, but briefly, it's that, when the trauma is affecting our whole nervous system, it's affecting our responses to everything in our life. And as we make changes in one area, it can affect other areas as well. So that's the brief explanation of that. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's very, very cool. I want to see women empowered. Okay, so I'm going to go back and show you those 3 pillars again. And now we're going to talk about the 3 pillars of healing. Then I'll be talking a little bit about what's inside of Arise. And then I'll be happy to answer questions. So let me share the screen here. Here are the 3 pillars. And I just want to talk briefly about them. So this is going to bring, as you go through the 3 pillars, you're going to get that relief of the trauma no longer running your life. You're going to start to feel more in charge of your inner world. You'll be able to become empowered to make these changes that you want in your life, and you'll have hope for your future. So the first pillar, understanding how trauma has affected you, is how you build this foundation for healing. And I teach about, the body and the brain in much more depth than this, and teach these research-based scientific tools that are very trauma specific to help you. And that's how you end up being able to stabilize yourself and getting to that point of remembering what it's like to have peace of mind, instead of anxiety and indecision and ruminating thoughts, and starting to be able to respond to life and relationships in ways that actually give you self-respect instead of feeling just out of control. I know I was, so out of control. The second pillar, strengthening your relationship with yourself. This is where we create emotional safety in your relationship with yourself and reconnect with that you lost. We build on your strengths. And I'll tell you, these strengths are the very things that your abusive ex or husband you did or is using to exploit, to control you. They exploit our good traits, things like our forgiveness, our long-suffering, our commitment, our loyalty, our trust, our tenderheartedness and compassion, our dependability. These are what they exploit, but we get to take those back and turn them towards ourself and be committed to ourself and loyal to ourself and compassionate towards ourself and so much more. And then we build on our strengths and we redevelop these inner resources that we think we've lost so we can really, really learn that we can rely on ourselves. And this is how we go from feeling powerless to empowered. And then the third pillar is healing for your heart, mind, soul, spirit, your dysregulated body. We undo lots of lies, deep-rooted lies that we've believed about ourselves. We heal spiritual abuse. We heal our relationship to the real Jesus if that's been damaged. And I'll get into some of the lies in a second. But I've put all this together into a guided step-by-step journey. It's a roadmap that guides you through these 3 pillars. Because I feel like I was like on my own, reading books and watching videos and trying to pull something together from everywhere. And it was so much easier. I found a trauma therapist who actually knew about narcissism and she knew about trauma. And going to somebody who knew what they were doing made all the difference in the world. So that's why, I want to offer that to you. So the healing journey is the step-by-step roadmap. And it consists of teachings and the tools that help that healing happen more easily. A couple of the Rise sisters have said this: Helena's way of explaining everything with a clear overview and a step-by-step approach is powerful and helps me understand what I need to do so clearly. She makes the complex stuff simple and easy to understand. And another woman said, I feel like a new person from 2 years ago. The heaviness, despair, and accusations that tormented me for 15 years have lifted. It's a miracle I never fathomed could happen for me. I love hearing that kind of stuff. So let me just show you briefly the roadmap. So here it is. And we start with module 1. It's a very gentle, quick module. You learn a couple little tools. Then we go through, then we go into the pillar 1, which is taught in module 2, all about trauma. And then module 3, it helps you with that second pillar of really strengthening you with yourself. And then the third pillar also continues here. Or the third pillar is these next 4 modules, where you can go through in whatever order you want, depending on, what you need. And once you join, if you join Arise, all this stuff is available to you instantly, and you can go through it in whatever way you want. And you get to go through it at whatever pace you want. There's no one watching you. It's all your healing journey. So I want to talk a little bit about, module 3, where this is where we really deep dive into walking in self-leadership, self-acceptance, self-compassion, self-empowerment. We learn how to let go of false responsibility for other people, how to free our sense of self from what other people think of us or are expecting of us, how to set boundaries from self-worth rather than just from fear and protection, and how to get the strength to detach from toxic people, how to protect ourselves from future abuse. That's kind of the stuff we go into in that module. And then in modules 4 through 7, the 4, healing your heart and mind. This is where we really see how the abuse has changed our perceptions about who we are, who other people are, who God is, what life is like, because there's such freedom when we live in truth. And we also deal with grief, how to get through our grief. Our grief is very, very real. The loss, the devastation, the anger, the betrayal, the loss of our dreams. We get into that. We also teach about healing from trauma bonds or cognitive dissonance, if you're dealing with either of those things. In module 5, healing your spirit, we talk about our confusion about God, legalism, how God feels about abuse, how he feels about us, and how we can really find and rest in a loving Jesus. And then in module 6, we go into our deep wounds, things like guilt and shame and self-doubt and self-blame and not trusting ourselves and self-criticism, feeling unworthy, all that yucky stuff. There's a process I teach for getting through that, healing that. And then module 7, I put in for parenting our hurting kids, because it's very hard to parent our kids when they've been traumatized and we're dealing with complex situations. So we talk about, I actually teach a concrete technique for parenting traumatized children. It's very different from your normal kind of Christian parenting books, because we want to be trauma informed when we deal with our kids and really help them. And we talk about how to teach them about what healthy looks like, and how to help them resolve their own pain. And the cool thing is the tools that I teach you can teach to your children. A lot of women on Arise do. And this is and everything I teach in parenting and the tools work for little kids or adult children. A lot of women's relationships with their adult children have actually been restored as they've started to be trauma informed with them and use these parenting techniques that I teach. And then we end up in module 8, living our new life, being at peace with ourselves, finding purpose and meaning for our life again. And then all of this happens within our community. And that's really important to me, to give you a loving community where you can get as much support in your healing journey as you want, because I never want another survivor to be left unsupported and alone and struggling like I was. There was nothing online when I was going through my divorce. And trauma research shows us that to even begin to heal, we absolutely need a community where we are heard and seen and understood and treated with compassion and never shamed or judged for our struggles. And this is exactly what we do in Arise. In fact, one of the women said, in Arise, we belong to a loving, faithful community where we can enjoy being together and love one another. There's constant encouragement to be self-compassionate and to take things at your own pace. Absolutely. So I wanted to give you a just a little quick tour of the site itself. It's very easy to navigate because I know what it's like to have a traumatized brain. So all of your links are right along here at the top. And then when you want to go through the teachings, you just click on what, where you want to start, and you come right here to a teaching. And so I've broken down each teaching. Each teaching is maybe 45 minutes total, but each of that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you see there are little tiny videos, like 5 minutes long, 7 minutes long, maybe 10, 12 at the most, because I want this to be really bite-sized, easy for you to take in. I know what it's like having a traumatized brain. And also, if you don't want to watch the videos, there's an audio you can hear or a transcript that you can read. And once you click on what you want to watch, it just shows up here. Here's the video. There's always some optional journaling exercises at the end. And let's see, I want to click on this last. Okay. This is your home page in Arise. And I want to show you everything that's included besides this healing journey that I've been talking about. There's actually more, and everything is, a buffet. You get to use what you want. You don't have to, engage in anything you don't want to. But we have once a month, we meet online live like this, only we talk to each other. You guys do most of the talking. I do very, less. We meet on Sundays. It's optional. It's always recorded, so you can get a replay. We also have a Q&A once a month where you just submit your questions, and I have lots of fun answering them very thoroughly. Those are also recorded, so you can watch them. And I also have a list of every question ever asked with where you find it and what time. It shows on the video. Then we have Beautiful Miss coaching gatherings where I get to coach you in the group, so you can really grasp how to use these tools in a deep way, and they become very, very simple for you to use, kind of go to. And those are also recorded if you can't make them. Then we also have clarity workshops. I bring in experts. There's all sorts of topics dealing with parental alienation, how to prepare for a divorce. We have got a really cool one on advanced techniques for communicating with an abuser, like, do I answer this? What do I say? That kind of stuff. I even have a workshop with Dr. George Simon, who's the author of my favorite book on this topic, In Sheep's Clothing, because he's an expert on covert abuse. There's other workshops too. We have Sister Rising Stories, which are other women in Arise sharing their healing journey, very encouraging. And then all the tools are also, I teach them throughout that healing journey I showed you, but they're also right here in the tool treasury. You can access them like that. If you want to join and just learn those tools right away, you can do that. This is all for you to use at the way that is best for you. Then we also have 2 communities. One's on Facebook, it's private, and another one is right here on this site for people who aren't on Facebook. And you can be in those communities as little or as much as you want, but we are here 24/7 to support one another. It's a very, very loving, supportive community because we understand trauma. No blame, no shame, just compassion. So I'm almost done. I just want to tell you that the cost of Arise, it's $33 a month or $330 for a year. If you subscribe to the monthly plan, you can cancel at any time. If you subscribe to the annual plan, it's not refundable. It's more bang for your buck. You get 2 free months, and you're also committing to yourself. You're sending yourself a message. I'm actually committing to my healing. And like, if, you have a few weeks where life is crazy, you can go right back in and use that material whenever you want. I also have within Arise, for the Arise women, a small group coaching called Momentum. We meet twice a month for 2 hours or a little longer usually. And that's an additional $287 a month. I know it's cost prohibitive for many people, but if you can afford it, you get everything in Arise, but you also get a very small community of women who know your story. You get coaching with me as often as you want, twice a month, and you get this consistent, focused consistency for your healing, and lots of close friendships, lots of connections with the other loving survivors. And we have lots of laughs. We laugh a lot. We joke a lot. We have lots of fun because we need that kind of relief too. So that is most of what I want to say. Let me just put a link here. This is where you can join if you want to. And I'm going to check your messages, but I just want to I want to just, before I answer questions, read a few more things that Arise women have said. This is what they want you to know. And then I'm sharing this to give you hope. I have found the teachings in Arise more helpful than my counseling. The teachings have been instrumental in my healing. Having support from not only Helena, but the community of women who understands is vital to my healing. You won't regret joining this amazing group of heroes. Another woman said, Arise is the favorite thing I've done in my healing journey. It feels like a cool water on a burn, and I feel more like me than I have in years. Isn't that beautiful? I was hesitant to join due to the fact that my current income is very limited. I needed help recognizing that it's time to take care of myself and to find peace and healing, and that I deserve to love myself. And that's what she found in Arise. And another one said, I'm learning about self-empowerment, that I can think for myself, make choices, not be afraid of other people's reactions, that I matter to God. He's with me to help me and comfort me. I am wowed every time I go through a teaching. And lastly, the teachings have been a lifesaver and a life giver for me. I'll be eternally grateful. So I just have a couple more things I want to say. I know that you have done your absolute best in a very impossible situation. I've been in that impossible situation. I remember it. I've been out for 12 or 13 years, but I remember. And I also know that God loves you so deeply. And I also know that the abuse has blinded you to who you are. But I also know abuse and trauma don't have to define you. They don't have to be a life sentence. It is possible to heal. I have healed. It's impossible to actually get your life back. I have my life back. I know who I am. And you can become an arising, healing, thriving survivor. But it takes being intentional about it. It takes a decision to commit to yourself. And that can be really hard for us after giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and being trained in that for so long. Putting ourselves first can be really hard, but it's important to do that. And then it also takes finding a healing path that is actually addressing what our problem is, which is the trauma, along with the emotional, psychological, spiritual, financial, sexual, all that abuse, the trauma that's come from that. So, I know that you matter enough to invest in your future. I really know that. And I will have one more thing to read, another woman from Arise, and I just want to say, this could be your story. She says, I was a mess before Arise. I am now my true self. I'm authentic, transparent, positive, and joyful. I don't even look the same. I have risen from the ashes. So that is yeah, that's all I want to share with you. I am really, really happy to stay and answer as many questions. I actually have a question that someone pre-submitted. If you want to ask a question, you can either put it in the chat, or you can go down to the what do you call these things? Reactions button at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand. And then you can just briefly ask me your question. I don't need to hear a long story because we do have time limitations here. But you could ask me your question verbally if you wanted to. So let's see. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So your husband telling you you're making a big mistake. Yeah, they all say that. Yep, he discarded you. I'm so sorry. That is very, very painful. My ex put an ad for a new wife on Craigslist 5 weeks after our divorce was final. He was remarried within a year. That's what they're like. Oh, so yeah, your husband is blaming you for being the way you are because of your childhood trauma. They love that one. They love that one. You're the way you are because of what he's doing to you. And sure, you have childhood trauma too. But if you were married to a good man, he would help you heal. He would not make it worse. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Sabrina, hi. Sabrina's one of our sisters. She says they're a totally private online community on the Arrive website. It's very secure. Let me tell you, no one can get in there. Okay. I think I've now gotten to the questions, so that's good. I will, oh, I didn't put the link into everybody. Let me do that. There we go. Here, this is the link where you can read more and join. And now I'm going to answer questions. So first I'll answer the one that somebody emailed to me, and then I'll answer the ones that are in chat box. Oh, Amelia, you just joined. Yay. Oh, good. Can't wait to get to know you inside. Okay. The question is, I've been married for 40 years, and I'm just beginning to realize that there was emotional abuse. It's been hard to determine whether, when my husband has Asperger's tendencies, autistic tendencies, but he was never diagnosed. Certainly many of the symptoms listed in your 6-step guide to discovering covert abuse ring true for me. Is it the autism issue that is always, it's the autism issue that's always made me explain away abusive behaviors. I have a lot of stress just realizing that there's been abuse all along and I never figured it out. I'm interested in your view on autism, Asperger's, and emotional abuse. You know, we've talked about this a few times inside of Arise. Now, okay, I cannot tell you whether your husband is on the spectrum or not. I have no idea. But I can tell you this, a lot of us have thought that when we were trying to make sense of something that did not make sense to us. I thought my husband had autism for a while, and I just ended up staying actually even more confused and stuck. But there are key differences between autism and abuse. And I'm just going to mention a few, just to give you a little bit of clarity. People with autism or Asperger's have a neurological issue, and therefore they are consistent in their behavior. They don't conform to people around them. They're the way they are in situations all through their life and with all the people. Abusers, on the other hand, change depending on who they're with. Depending on what they're trying to accomplish, depending on who they're trying to manipulate, depending on they change us and how they treat us, depending on where they are in their cycle of either controlling or trying to do love bombing and regroom us to trust them again. So that's how the abuser behaves. People with Asperger's are not calculating with tactics like gaslighting, and they're not hurting hurting us or pushing our buttons intentionally. When they hurt people, it's out of ignorance, not in order to accomplish a goal that they have. Abusers, on the other hand, use a tactic to accomplish a goal that they have. There are a lot of other of differences between Asperger's and narcissism, or autism and narcissism. You can Google that and find out more information. But here's the bottom line. Even if he has mild Asperger's or autism, if he's also using abuse tactics, that would probably be the stronger part of his personality, and his Asperger's would be pretty mild. And that makes him an abuser. And since you related to my Understanding Covert Abuse guide, that's a freebie download on my website, confusionofclaritynow.com. This means that your husband is a covert abuser because he's using covert abuse tactics. And that's what matters. And confusion is one of the most common symptoms of psychological abuse. And confusion is not you, it's actually a sign of the abuse. I know women who are in difficult marriages. I know women who have to work hard in their marriages. I'm very close friends with a woman who is married to an alcoholic. But these women are not confused. They know what's going on. They don't have a husband who's trying to confuse them. It's very, very different. So I just want to let you know that all of us have a hard time figuring out whether we're being abused. That's the nature of abuse. It's the nature of covert psychological abuse. And it is very stressful. I understand how stressful it is. But don't beat yourself up about that. And if you can't stop, you can use a tool in Arise to help you. It took me 18 years to figure out I was being abused. That's why I have an entire website, confusionofclaritynow.com, dedicated to helping women understand abuse, because it is so confusing. And we do talk a lot about that in Arise, and, getting clarity on it. That's why I wrote that guide, because it's so confusing. So you're not alone. And it's really good. Now you know what you need to heal from. And that's good. That's a very good thing. Okay, let me now go back and see what some questions are. Let's see. Okay, good. How do you know for sure if it's abuse? You mentioned it took you a long time to identify it. You're still wondering. Okay. Well, you've worked with several therapists and a couple of counselors, and they've never said it was abuse. Most therapists and certainly most marriage counselors are not trained in abuse. So I'm not surprised. I hear this story all the time. I would really recommend that you go to my website, confusionofclaritynow.com, and download the guide to understanding covert abuse. It's a long guide, and it will ask you so many questions. It will help you clarify. And then read articles on my site. I have gobs of information there to help you understand and sort it out. And if you want to join Arise, we will help you as well. Lots of women in Arise are in that confusing state, trying to figure it out themselves. The small group coaching meetings, Momentum. Oh, they go 2 hours officially, oftentimes 2.5. And they're twice a month. Oh, Sherry, hi. You're saying you don't know what you would do without Arise. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. The cost of Arise, Francis, is in American dollars. Yes. All right. Okay, thanks for recognizing the effort of women trying to just continue to take it a day at a time. It's so hard to live with abuse. It's so hard. I know. You have your therapy dog to help you. I'm so glad. I had a therapy cat who died in July. It was agonizing for me. It's not just he was my emotional support. Yeah. It's not your spouse, it's his parents, and his dad's a pastor. Yeah, I know. A lot of us have complex family situations that we're trying to untangle ourselves from. It's very hard. Is it common for sexual intimacy issues to be present? I've only been married 3.5 years, we're 34 and 35. We don't have sex. I feel unattracted to him due to lack of emotional and mental intimacy. Yeah. Oh boy. Personally, there were quite a few times that I had 3 in-house separations with my ex before our divorce, and before our separation, or our out of house separation. Outhouse. I wish he had been in the outhouse. That's where he should have been. Anyway, and before that, there were times when he was a huge porn user, other issues. And so I would just stop having sex with him. I think I didn't have sex with him for like a year and a half one time because I didn't feel safe. I didn't know why I didn't feel safe. I hadn't identified the abuse yet. But yeah, it's very common. It's very normal and healthy for you to not want to be sexually intimate with a man who is abusing you. That's a actual positive thing, because when we're sexually intimate, we are being so vulnerable and so trusting, and an abuser is not deserving of our trust. So the sexual intimacy issue is a symptom of him abusing you. It's not a problem with you. What's the one immediate thing you can do to protect yourself from financial abuse? That's complicated because I would need to know more about your particular situation. But one immediate thing you could do is go to a completely different financial institution and open up a bank account that's only in your name. But see, I would have to know if you share accounts and all that kind of stuff. But that's one thing that you can do. I'm glad you're grateful. Good. Okay. My husband is insisting he has ADHD, even though he went through the testing and does not have it. I think he wants to use it as an excuse for his narc and abusive behavior. We were just talking about this recently in one of our gatherings that, all these excuses, whether it's I have Asperger's, I have ADHD, my mom didn't love me, all that kind of stuff. They just have a million excuses. Yeah, very common. The cognitive and memories are horrible. Yeah, and Arise can really help you with that. Arise is special because it's the only program like this one that is trauma-informed and makes all the difference. Yes. Thank you, Susan, for saying that. Okay, is the only way to heal to divorce. With the kids, it's not okay with me that the kids would be with him and not in his family without your protection. Do I have to find tools to wait till the oldest graduates high school? No. Here's the beautiful thing about the tools that I teach. They can be used to help you while you're married, to get clarity, to learn to regulate your nervous system, to keep yourself much more calm, to be able to respond to him better, to survive the marriage better. Now, to fully heal, yes, you do have to be out of the trauma, but there's a lot you can do to learn how to regulate yourself while you're still in the trauma. And so that's why the tools are just so valuable, no matter where you're at in the journey. I wish I had had them from the day I got married. And being concerned about your kids is very common. There are quite a few women in Arise who are in the same situation as you. Okay, Susan, Arise is the best. Awesome. My husband said he can't leave the family because I won't submit. He wants to know why he shouldn't have the final say if we don't agree on something, since he's the head of the family. I don't know how to answer him. What do I say? Well, quite honestly, there's probably nothing you can say to convince him differently. I would suggest that you start with getting really clear on the truth for yourself. So your husband is spiritually abusing you. I have an 8-part series on spiritual abuse and the lies that are thrown at us to spiritually abuse us. That's on my confusionofclaritynow.com website under the articles tab at the top. So I suggest that you read through that whole series because you want to be really clear. For us to be able to make decisions about how we're going to respond, what we're going to do, we have to be clear about what the truth is. So, there are all sorts of different ways that you can choose to handle him. And that's kind of depth we could get into, like in a Q&A and a Rise, or the stuff that you would be working through. But I can tell you he's lying. The problem is not that you won't submit. The Bible does not tell us that we have to submit unequally to our husbands. That is spiritual abuse. And the Bible does not tell us that the husband has the final say. So, I can give you 10 different answers, but the question is, how do I live with this guy? Because what you say to him is not necessarily going to change him, and you can't change him unless he has a revelation, unless actually even more, he wants to give up the power and control that he feels entitled to have over you as his wife. That's the only thing that will make him change. So, I could give you 10 answers. I'll give you one. And I'm not saying use this. It's just something to think about. I don't agree. That's an answer. Okay. You can't get through to the confusion. It's confusion to clarity now. Okay. So .com, try that. We don't want confusion and clarity. We want to go from confusion to clarity. The modules are done on your own. How often do you interact with me besides the private coaching? Oh, one of the favorite things in my life is meeting with the Arise sisters. I meet live with the sisters twice a month at the minimum. Some months I also do the coaching, so that's 3 times a month at the minimum. And we meet for several hours, 2 to 3 times a month live. And I am in the communities. When people ask questions, I'm there answering. I am like all in. Arise is my place. Thank you, Sandra. It took, okay. Someone else says, it took me 29 years to confront the abuse. You've been divorced 7. Lots of abuse happened during your marriage. He never put his hands on me. It was all emotional. Yes. And, that's what makes it so especially hard, because we don't have anything that even society will tell us is abuse. Society doesn't tell us that emotional abuse is abusive. So that's why, like me, I would read, starting at year 15, I was reading sites like, am I being abused? And he didn't fit any of the boxes because he was a covert abuser. He never yelled and screamed and hit and threatened me. And so I was like, oh, it must be me for 3 years. And then I finally found out about covert abuse, and I had the answer. I went to couples counseling. By the time we walked out, the counselor said, I wish my husband would hold my purse like my ex did. Yeah. Oh, my ex used to do that kind of stuff. And everybody would be like, he loves you so much. Yeah. Because they're doing those kinds of things to image manage how other people see them. Julia, the confusion you feel about the fact that your husband is very generous is part of the whole thing. My husband was also very, very generous. I spent 10 years of our marriage in bed with chronic fatigue, and he took care of me. Now, he was seething, and there was a lot of body language going on and all sorts of stuff. And he would be playing the hero every time we went to the doctor. There was a lot of stuff going on underneath the surface that I didn't recognize, but he appeared to be very generous. That's what makes it so confusing. So I do hope you'll download that guide and see if some of that stuff is there, because covert abuse is very hard to figure out. The maximum number of participants in the small group coaching, I don't know. I'm thinking around 8. I don't know. 10, haven't decided yet, Sabrina. We do have a group that's going right now that has 6. So I'm trying to work that out. Oh, if you want to try Momentum, the small group coaching inside of Arise, there is a 3-month minimum commitment, Susan. Okay. Well, right now in Momentum, we meet on Tuesdays at 4:00 Pacific. If enough women join this time around who want to also be in Momentum, I could start a second group, and then we would decide among the women what the best time to meet would be. Once you join, if you join Momentum, you'll be sent to a questionnaire to give your times of availability. And then we work that out. Okay. I am divorced from my abuser. The abuse is verbal, emotional, and physical. I'm working on breaking the trauma bond and healing. I currently have to see my ex every week. We exchange our 16-year-old daughter. It's hard to see him. You feel wounded. I'm wondering if for my healing, it would be best to go no physical contact. Tomorrow when he comes to pick up my daughter, I'm not going to help her carry out her bags. Good. Wondering if I should email him and tell him I don't want to see him. He'll tell my daughter I am being controlling, but I feel this is a boundary to protect me. Last week during our exchange, he called me derogatory names. And you got to step back in your healing. Yes, you have the right to set any and every boundary that you want to set. I think no contact, if it's at all possible, is the best of all possible worlds. Sometimes it's not possible. But also using tools before the drop off can also help prepare you and regulate your body. We talk a lot about that in Arise. As far as your daughter, I don't know what your relationship is like with her. I don't know how much she knows, but you have the right to say to her, it's very upsetting for me to see your father. So therefore, in order to take care of myself, I won't be seeing him. That's fine to tell her. You get to say your own narrative. You get to say the truth. And you can even say, he'll probably think I'm being controlling, but quite honestly, it's just because I don't want to be upset and triggered. And leave it at that. Is it common for the discard to happen when you tell them you're aware of narcissism? He said he has something wrong, was going to go to inpatient counseling, then out of the blue, I was discarded. He professes love until the day I found out about counseling. Yeah, this is all very confusing. And yes, sometimes a narcissist will discard you when they know that you're on to them. They'll try the love bombing sometimes, or else they'll just discard you. Yeah. Oh yeah, he was cheating, and okay, and he said he would go into counseling and discard you. Yeah, discard is definitely a narcissistic move. And I'm sorry, I know it hurts because we take it as that being discarded somehow is a reflection of our value. Sometimes that becomes an issue, or we feel rejected. And so that's, one of those things that you get to work through in Arise, because you were not being rejected. He was incapable of loving. And just because he discarded you does not change who you are. You still have these amazing traits that he targeted you for originally, the loving, compassion, kindness. And your value to a narcissist is only what he can get from you. And when we get onto them, he realizes he can't manipulate us as much, and he's done. You were just a toy. And he realized his toy had outlived its usefulness. I'm sorry, I hate to say that because it sounds so harsh, but it's actually how they think. And I don't mean to undermine your pain, because you were genuinely in the relationship. And so your pain is very, very, very real. But how he treats you is not a reflection of who you are. I've heard if you're going through hell, don't pitch a tent. It's been 11 years since he left because I set boundaries. There's another discard. We're still not divorced because he's messing with the course. Is this something you'd recommend for me? Arise. Oh yeah. If he's still messing with you, Yeah, for sure. Definitely. It'll help you a lot. And I'm sorry you're going through that. And there are women in Arise who have been divorced for 10, 15 years who are still trying to heal because they never were able to really get to their trauma for the last 10 years. And now they're being able to move forward. If anyone wants to raise their hand, please do. I saw someone did and then lowered it, which is fine. But I would take a break for anyone who verbally wanted to ask me a question. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. Yeah, abusers use the court system to abuse and keep control. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, you have to leave. Great. I'm so glad you were here. I think some men refuse to have sex, and that's part of their problem. Lack of sex and lack of intimacy goes along with porn use and other issues. Yes. You know, men will use sex to control us, withholding in order to make us feel bad about ourselves and feel lonely. So then they can come in, you know, and either swoop us off our feet and be the knight in shining armor, or they can just, you know, make us feel really bad about ourselves, because that is one thing that they like to do. They do like to control how we see ourselves, how we see them, how we see Jesus, all that. I'm sorry about your sexual abuse during your wedding night. Yeah. Did my chronic fatigue improve when I got out? Well, here's another whole issue, which is, and I didn't talk about this in the webinar, chronic abuse causes health problems. I did a survey of the women in my Confusion and Clarity group. And now granted, it was a survey of, you know, women who were choosing to answer it, but 85% of them said that they had health issues as a result of the abuse. So that's another reason why it's so important to heal our trauma. So my chronic fatigue it actually improved because I went to a deliverance ministry and I was healed in a week. I don't understand why, because that deliverance ministry turned out to be a cult that was being run by a narcissist. That's a whole other story, but I was healed. Unfortunately, several years after my divorce, my body collapsed, and I came down with ulcerative colitis, which I've been able to control until recently. I also developed chronic leukemia during the marriage. So I actually have two very serious chronic health issues that I deal with still. My doctor said to me, the horses are out of the barn, meaning you can heal your trauma, but the diseases are there. So that is a issue before God for me on that kind of healing. But I can tell you that there are women in Arise who have told me that their blood pressure has stabilized, their insomnia has gone away. One woman's fibromyalgia got healed. There's quite a few other issues that women have found are getting better. That is not something that I would ever promise anybody. I can't make that kind of promise because our physical issues are very complicated. But healing the trauma is never a bad thing to do. Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I'll keep going through the chat. I think my husband had early trauma. He seems to be covertly difficult, doesn't want to have sex, Asperger-like, slow to make progress in counseling. I feel guilty as I want to get a divorce, but I want to help him through these issues as a supportive friend. But I want to get a divorce for my health. Does that make sense? Yes, that does make sense. And you can do exactly what you need to do for your health, for your mental health and your physical health, your emotional health, everything. I'm not saying for sure he's covertly abusive, so I'm labeling him covertly difficult. That is fine. And by the way, there are a couple women in Arise whose husbands, they're with them and the husbands are changing. See, there are women in Arise in every single stage of the journey, and everybody is welcome, no matter what you're going through. And there's quite a few women in Arise who are not ready to leave and are staying and watching and waiting, staying and trying to make the best decisions, staying for their kids, things like that. They are 100% supported, and they're finding that the tools and the trauma work is helping them. Okay, my husband is in treatment for covert abuse. I had no idea there was treatment for covert abuse. It's been a year. We haven't lived together for 2. I still see him daily because of our business. He seems better. I don't know. I don't know the difference between love bombing and him getting better. I have an article on my website, the Confusion to Clarity Now.com website, called Will He Change? I would suggest that you read that, because I go into great detail about how to tell if someone's actually changing, because I walked through someone changing with somebody, her husband changing. And I've watched it, I've seen it. And I've also seen hundreds of men who said that they were changing, and hundreds of women who thought that they were changing, and it wasn't, genuine. So I wrote that article to help you figure out. And really, it's his heart that you're looking at, not his behavior. I go into this in the article. He needs to be on the floor, broken. I mean, out of control, weeping at how much he's hurt you. That's when you know that they're changing. That's what you're looking for, and a lot of other stuff that's in that article. And I know how confusing it is. Oh my goodness. Today, my husband told me he was going to continue living his own life. How can I stop denying that he has done that for years? Stop depending on him and choose my next step. Well, that's how you do that, is you make that decision that you're first, and you're going to do whatever it takes to heal and to put yourself first and to get yourself back and develop your own life. This is exactly what you would do inside of Arise. So, the denial is something that you can actually use a tool to work through, because, that's all part of the trauma. Denial is a survival mechanism, and you can work through that denial and unhook that trauma and get that clarity and that relief. But also sometimes we stay in denial because we know that the grief is going to be so painful, and we don't want to feel that. So I have a whole teaching on the grief, because that's incredibly real. But yeah, it's time to work on yourself, and you really can. My husband claims he's only looked at porn once, but I suspect something deeper is going on. I agree with you. I don't think once is usually the way it works. I developed an autoimmune disease due to the chronic stress of the marriage. Yeah, that's exactly what I have. Thank you for praying for my healing. Okay, hey, Lisa, go ahead. I'll unmute you and you can ask me your question. Try to be somewhat brief. You're still muted.
Yeah, okay. So I guess my question is, in this situation, I became so enraged and critical and indifferent. And really, if you came into my house, I would look like the abuser, honestly. And so I guess my question is like, we're also in marriage counseling, and it's just trying to understand, like, I was the one that asked the question, is it love bombing? Is it he actually getting well? He is in domestic violence treatment, and we have a unique program. I'm in Oregon, and
so am I. What program is he in?
He's in Allies.
I haven't heard of that. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's the guy, he wrote a book and he has a treatment center and yada yada. And they don't let them talk about the other person. They can only talk about themselves. It's group therapy with all these men, and these men are just, they just call them on them. Like, they stay, some of them have been in there for years and they just want to stay. They don't have to stay. He's in a volunteer group. He's not in a mandatory group. Okay. And they're just on him all the time. And at first, I think, like, he didn't really think he was abusive. I think he just went there thinking maybe we'd change spots, and
so what's your question, Lisa?
Well, my question is like, he is never weak. He is never weak, but he has slowly been like, you know what? I really thought it was you. He never said that. We've been married for 37 years. He has never said, I really just thought you were the problem. He is always, now he's like, he is not just seems to be, he's seeing himself, but a lot of it doesn't seem, it's just around codependency and not having his own voice, his alcoholic, upbringing, his dad, it's like from that, like it is abusive. I read your covert thing. He hit every single one in there. He did,
Just in the interest of time, can we get back to
yeah,
your question,
yeah,
please?
yeah. Go ahead.
Well,
That's
I
my
want to
question.
know what your question is.
Well, the question is like about the love bombing, like, and if you have, because he didn't weep, but in the allies, they consider me abusive. And
Well, we
so,
talk about this in Arise. There's a thing that is labeled reactive abuse. And Dr. George Simon truly describes it beautifully. He says, take a look at a cat. If a cat is stalking a mouse, that cat is the predator. If a cat is being cornered by a dog and is in the corner like this, hissing and defending itself, people who don't understand cats would say that cat is being a predator. But that cat is defending itself from a predator, as opposed to being the predator, which the cat is when it's hunting. That's the difference. So you are defending yourself. Now, I don't know you, maybe, I don't know, but
pretty good at it.
most of us take on certain traits to defend ourselves because we have been living in an untenable, impossible, traumatic, abusive situation for so long that all we can go into anymore is fight.
Yeah,
That's that trauma response.
Yeah.
And so if, to change that reaction, you need to be working on that trauma survival mechanism that you've fallen into of fight. But you also need to know you're safe to be out of the full, to be completely out of that ongoing trauma reaction, which is why if you're still married, the trauma tools can help regulate. But the deep, deep, deep healing happens when you're safe and you're no longer married to an abuser. So I hope my article will help you sort about.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Jenna.
Hi.
Hi.
My question was, how do you know when you are healing or healed? I'm currently in separation, in the process of a divorce. And I'm in sort of the confused state of if I was abused or not. But I just kind of want to know what it looks like, if it's heartbreak or if it's the sadness and things that I'm feeling. I'm not so much concerned with analyzing, what was done to me, more of like where I am.
Mm-hmm. Well, Arise focuses on us. We do help women sort through things, figure out things if that's what they need. But the Arise healing journey is about us. And we focus on us and our healing. So our healing is actually more than just going through the grief and the heartbreak that you mentioned. That is a very, very, very much a part of it, is very real. And we all have to go through the grieving process. But there's a lot more because abuse affects us on so many levels. And so, what I try to do in Arise was to take every level that it's affected us at and address all of them. Now, there may be some things that you don't, that you weren't affected in, and that's fine. You don't have to do those teachings at all. But it is more than just healing our grief to heal, because the trauma, as I talked about, has also affected us. So we want to heal that as well. Does that answer the question?
Sort of. I just wanted to know, like, maybe some things that what healing looks like. Like, I guess when you're coming out of it, I know that, for everybody, time frames are different. I just kind of want to know when you how can you identify you're healing or you're healed?
Um, you know, I think that everybody would probably have a different definition.
Okay.
But what I think healing involves is we don't get triggered by situations. We feel like we are in control of our response to life and to what life throws at us. We know that if we really do get thrown for a loop, we have the skills to get ourselves through it. We know how to handle our emotions. We really have a good sense of who we are. We feel like we can set boundaries with people. We know that we can protect ourselves and identify other abusers or handle toxic people in a job or other situations. That we feel like we know what our meaning, our purpose, that we feel like our life matters, it has a purpose again. We feel very close to Jesus, protected by our Father. I mean, I could go on. We don't have ruminating thoughts. We're pretty clear. We understand the lies that we've been believing, and we know what the truth is. We feel safe with ourselves. We feel safe with other people. We feel safe with God. And those
Okay.
are just, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
So
that was helpful. Thank you.
sure. I'm glad you spoke up.
Thank you.
Okay, I will continue to the questions that are in the chat box. I believe the article is, will he change? If that's not the right one, if that's not the right topic, then tell me what it was about and I'll tell you what the article is called. Okay. This is a long one. I'm going to just read it quickly. Okay, so you decided after all these different ahas, you filed in 2022, you live separate lives in the same house until the divorce is done. Oh, and you're in a rise. Okay. And I mean, I knew you were in a rise, but I just was wondering if you had a question for me. Okay. So that's just sharing about a rise. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I knew you were in a rise. I was just wondering if you're asking me a question here. Okay, great. I'm glad this has helped you, Francis. You didn't leave because you didn't want to go through the grief. This is your third narc relationship. I'll tell you what I did for my grief. I noticed that when I avoided my grief, I would start to get really snappy and short with my son. I would feel overwhelmed by life. I didn't want to get out of bed. So I decided to take like 10 to 30 minutes every day. And I would put on songs that would make me bawl my eyes out. And I would actually let myself feel the grief for 10 to 30 minutes every day. I had to do that for probably 4 months. But I noticed that if I gave myself the room to feel that grief every day, it wasn't coming out sideways. And I was starting to be less scared of it. It became a friend of mine because I knew that it was it was one of the steps I had to go through to heal. But I'll tell you, I understand not wanting to feel the grief. It sucks. When my cat died in 15 years of he followed me around the house like a dog. I was like, oh, I can't even imagine facing grief again. But, I did it. And my mom had died a month earlier, so it was a lot of grief this summer. Marriage counseling made my abuser worse. My marriage counselor didn't understand trauma responses. She was supposed to be a trauma counselor. It broke me worse than the abuse. I am so, so sorry. I'm so sorry. There are so many counselors who hurt us more deeply. And I am so sorry you went through that. I promise you, I understand trauma. I have lived it. And I'm well trained, but I've lived it. There is no accusation in our eyes for trauma. It's just a safe haven. Yeah. A marriage counselor that's competent will not do marriage counseling in an abusive relationship. It's really true, because for marriage counseling, the client is the marriage. But when there's an abuser, the client needs to be the wife and the husband not in the room. How do you know it's time to move on? You've been separated for 1.5 years. He's going to counseling. You don't see any real change. All he wants to do is get back home, and he's checking off the list. You know, I can't tell you when it's time for you to move on. That's your personal decision. And, you know, seek your heart, pray, and just ask yourself, am I done? 1.5 years is a good long time to know who he is and what his choices are going to be. And you're seeing clearly that he's just doing the checklist. He just wants to come home, but he has no real intention of changing. So if he came home, he would be right back where you were to start with. And he's not at home and he's not changing. So, you know, if you just like get a clear bird's eye view on that situation, then, you know, think about that and decide how much longer do you want to live in limbo like this? And that's your decision. Yeah, okay. Sherry's sharing her experience with a marriage counselor. Lisa, yes, momentum is a minimum 3-month commitment. Arise, if you join on the monthly plan, you can leave at any time. You just cancel your subscription yourself and you can leave. If you do the annual plan, then you're committing to it for 1 year. Will he change? Great. Okay, good. Your 4 weeks no contact, how long do withdrawal symptoms last? Well, you know, I talk about that in Arise. There's trauma bonding. And I have a whole teaching on trauma bonding with tools and things you can do to help. But 4 weeks is pretty soon. I won't tell you that I will, that my trauma bonding lasted a good long time, like 6 months. I had no tools. I didn't know what it was. No one was telling me. Nobody had the information. I was all on my own. I've been abandoned by all my friends. I was completely on my own. And so I didn't have the support. I didn't have people to call to talk me off the ledge. I was in nothing but confusion. So you can shorten it with the tools and understanding what's actually going on in your body. That helps a lot. And, you know, we'll talk you off the ledge and Arise. For 4 weeks is still early days. Thank you for posting the link to the article. Yeah. Okay. Along with the trauma bond teaching, there's the cognitive dissonance teaching. They're in the same exact teaching and they do work together. I had cognitive dissonance. It was brutal, 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 brutal. And they do work together and you can unhook them together. There's more sharing about Christian marriage counseling and how much it traumatized and damaged us. I mean, the women who are sharing, I'm so sorry. It's just truly unconscionable that these people are not trained to actually help us. Okay. How long to do no contact is best? I have no children yet. I have not emotionally connected. He does, but you haven't connected. You know, all of these decisions are for you to decide for what's best for you. I will tell you from my own personal experience that if you can go no contact for the rest of your life, that would be the healthiest thing for you. Because ultimately ask yourself, why would I want to have contact with somebody who has been abusing me? So if you can't go no contact forever, then go for as long as you possibly can. Okay, Alicia, I see that you have your hand up, so go ahead and
Yeah.
yeah.
I just had a question. So I think that these men come from like abusive home lives too. And so my experience has been, in the beginning of our marriage, like I was more emotionally reactive, and my husband's family responded with silent treatment. They wouldn't talk with me. They would not. I really badly wanted to say, hey, let's work this out. Let's talk this out. I want you to hear where I'm coming from, and I want to apologize. And they refused to do that. And so on Christmas, I was sitting home alone with no family to spend it with. And my husband told me that I deserved that because of my emotional reactivity to his family. And I said to him, well, they haven't given me a chance to show like how I've changed, because I've grown a lot. Like I actually don't emotionally respond the same way. I've learned how to tone that down. And my husband says, well, I think that you're the problem, and and I can't communicate with you. We need to go to marriage counseling because you need to see that my family's not the problem, that you're the problem. And so I'm like, it's just hard because as a Christian, I'm just like, I really badly want like reconciliation. I really badly do, want to do everything in my power to be at peace and everything. But at the same time, I feel like I'm being abused by his family in addition to him. And I'm like, is that all in my head though? Or is this real? It's so hard.
It is hard. I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm really sorry. There's a scripture. It says, live at peace with all men where possible. I mean, I misquoted it, but that's what it means. It is impossible to live at peace with an abuser because they have a different goal than we do. Our goal is peace and reconciliation. Their goal is power and control and abuse.
Yeah. And it's like, no matter how much I apologize, I get ignored.
Yes.
And I apologize over and over again. And then he tells me, well, it's not good enough, Alicia, because you're not doing it the way that they need it. And because he says I didn't submit to him by letting him approve my words, that the way I said things is why they're treating me this way.
Okay. You are being so abused by him. This is horrific.
Wow.
He is lying to you. He is accusing you. He's using every tactic in the book on you. I want to literally call him up and tell him to shut up.
Yeah, because like I just feel like he's isolated me, and I'm just now starting to get out of the isolation. I'm just now starting to build a community of women and stuff. And he's like calling, like that phone call was from him just now. He's a pilot, and he's calling me a lot more because he senses that I'm getting stronger. And it's like before he would ignore me on his trips, never talk to me, and now he's like wanting to call me all the time.
Yeah, right. So that's what they do. They sense that they're losing a little bit of control, so they amp up. It's either they amp up the control or they start doing the love bombing and all that. But you are being abused, and everything he said to you is a lie. You are not the problem, and you cannot have a peaceful marriage with a man who has a different goal than you do.
Yeah.
You cannot, and this is what is so hard for us as Christian women, because we so much want to live out of our values. We want to please the Lord. And none of those things are possible with an abuser. You can do that with safe people. You can do that with good friends. You can, one thing I love about Arise is that women get to experience who they truly are. Because inside of Arise, we get to take all those beautiful traits of love and compassion and all that, and we get to turn it towards ourselves and share that with each other. And then other people, like they give us that feedback of how kind and compassionate and loving we are, and that we're smart and all this. And it's like, oh, that's who I am. All those lies about the abuse were lies. And so many women say they've finally found a safe home. Because I make sure Arise is safe. There's never been anything that's happened in Arise that was unsafe. Anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent. But Alicia, it's very hard, and you don't have any good options. That's the problem, is we don't have good options with an abuser. We end up trading one heart for a different heart.
Would you say that I need to focus on separating sooner than later? And should I have a job before I do that? Or, because like those are like hard decisions to make. Like, I don't know if I should just, try to find help to find place to move and then get alimony, or should I get a job and not qualify for alimony? I don't know.
Well, those are the kind of detailed questions that you can hash out, like even in the Arise community, and you get to make those decisions for yourself. A lot of women do find that getting some kind of a job, if they need some income, is good. I didn't have a job because I was homeschooling, but like in the stuff that the legal system calculated, they still calculated my income as a full-time minimum wage worker, which really reduced the amount of alimony I got. So it depends on the state you're in, the country you're in. So those are all, what I did was I went to about 5 different lawyers and did free consultations with them. I don't know if they're still doing those, but back then they were. And I got a few questions answered from each lawyer. And started to just get a perspective on what because we go into the legal system, it's a whole brand new thing. We don't even understand. And it's, it's a lot to learn. And yeah. So those specifics about job or no job, getting out now or later, those are for you to decide. But I mean, we can hash out the details inside of Arise, but ultimately the decision is yours. But a lot of women will share their own experiences with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I will go. Thank you for speaking up, and I will go back to the messages here. By the way, I just want to say something about you saying about your husband's childhood trauma, Alicia. Do you know, most of the women in Arise, high percentage, including myself, have childhood trauma. None of us chose to become an abuser as a result of our childhood trauma. There are a lot of men who have childhood trauma who don't choose to abuse other people. So I have an article called "Why Does He Abuse Me?" And it really talks about that myth that hurt people hurt people. I'm not saying that some hurt people don't hurt people, but I'm saying that not all people who hurt people are doing it because they were also hurt. There's a different thing going on with an abuser than just having been hurt as a child. And if they did have childhood trauma, then they should be like the rest of us, put on their big boy panties, go to therapy, and deal with it so they stop hurting other people. I mean, we're willing to do the work to heal. Why can't they? They're grown-ups just like we are. So that excuse does not fly. For me, that's my opinion on that one. Loretta, are you asking me how to word an email? She wants to give your husband a opportunity to grow and change. That's such a very, very, very detailed question. I would like to more refer that to, if you join Arise, we can deal with that there. Because hashing through how to word an email is a little bit too detailed for today. I can tell you we have an amazing workshop on communicating with flying monkeys, potential flying monkeys and abusers. Flying monkeys are people who take the side of the abuser. And it's all, there's something in there called the yes game. And that's what I would suggest that you do, but I can't go into teaching all of that right here because we're already at 2 hours. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions. A letting go of future dreams and triggers about thinking the future. Yeah, I talk about all of that in the grieving process. We have to grieve not only who we thought he was, but who he turned out to be. And not only what we thought our future would be when we thought he was who he wasn't, but now what our future is going to be because he is who he is. We have a lot more complicated grief than somebody who had a good marriage and their husband died. That's grief. Ours has so many layers and complexities to it. And when I talk about all that. All right. Your husband's pastor said rape was okay. Well, I would get out of there as fast as possible. I would never go back to that church. I mean, no. It's not okay, ever, 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 whether you're married or not, it's not okay. Okay, that looks like all the questions. If there's any last ones, toss them in there. Otherwise, we can just wrap up. You know, Rachel, I would recommend, if you have the financial ability to do so, I would recommend joining for a year, just because you're going to get 2 months free, and you're going to actually be sending a message to your whole like nervous system and body that you're making a commitment to healing and that you've got lots of time. Because see, healing is not quick. Growth and change increases. The tools help a lot. But it's a process to heal. We have complicated stuff to heal from. And so, you know, if I was going to join, I would give myself a year. A lot of women join for a year and then they keep staying in it because it's such an amazing community and they like encouraging other women. And as a lot of women are telling me that they've gone through the whole journey once, and then like a year later, they go through it again and they're learning all sorts of new things that they missed because they were in a different place a year ago. So it's just, you know, your personal choice, but I like the annual plan myself. Okay, does Arise begin immediately? Yes. As soon as you join, boom, you'll go to your home page and you'll have access to the orientation, which just orientates you to the site, helps you understand about some of the obstacles that you might be facing in your healing journey, shows you how to use the site, stuff like that. Then you can just start in on the teachings as soon as you want. And you can take as long as you want. It's all about what you need. Yeah, as Susan said, there's plenty in Arise to fill a year and more. Yes, absolutely. Cecilia, Arise is open once a month for new members. It's very time consuming, you know, to like do this kind of stuff to help women learn about Arise. So between openings, I just boom, I am 100% in there with my women. So you can join later and at the end of the month, the end of following month, whenever, you know. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you all so much for hanging in so long. We're at the 2-hour mark, but you know something, there's something that binds us all together, and that is that we get it. You know, so many people just say that one thing that they love in Arise is we don't have to explain ourselves. We get it. We've been there. We know. And there's such peace and fellowship in that. So, you know, I'm glad you all are staying here with me. I mean, have stayed here with me because I know you get it. You know, I get it. And far too many of us have not enough of that in our lives. I know when I was going through my divorce, I was literally abandoned by everybody. They all sided with him. So that's what I don't want any woman to ever go through. It was brutal for me. Okay, there's the link. If you want to join, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm so glad this has been helpful to you. This is just a tiny taste. We have so much fun together in Arise. We love hanging out, and you'll find some really dear friends in there. So if you feel like, yeah, this is what I want, you can join today, or you have a couple more days. Arise closes on Tuesday. And I hope I get to see every single one of you inside Arise and celebrate with you. You know, we mourn as you mourn, we rejoice as you rejoice. We celebrate your victories. And I would love to do that with you as well. So thank you for being here. And I hope I'll see you inside Arise.